The content on the Untold Tales channel is protected by copyright. Unauthorized use may result in legal liability. The price of survival. The roar of the engine, like the pounding of a war drum, deafened me, drowning out even my thoughts. The headlights of the pursuing car flashed madly in the mirrors, flooding the interior with blinding light. The road ahead disappeared into darkness, and I gripped the steering wheel, struggling to keep the car under control. "Dad!" William's voice rang out from the back seat. "They're catching up. Hold on tight." "Son," I growled, glancing in the mirror. Anna clutched her seatbelt beside me, her face pale. "Bruce, what do we do?" "Survive," I spat, yanking the wheel hard to the left, forcing our pursuers to react. A black SUV shot out from around the corner, and in the same instant, the first gunshots rang out. Bullets sparked against the asphalt behind us. "Shit," I cursed, wrenching the wheel and slamming the gas pedal to the floor. The tires screeched, and the car skidded across the road before launching forward. Cold sweat trickled down my spine. "Bruce, look." I caught sight of another car blocking our path ahead. Clenching my teeth, I did the only thing left. I spun the wheel and swerved onto a dirt road. Mud and gravel flew into the air as the tires struggled to hold traction. William squeezed his eyes shut in the back, while Anna let out a strangled gasp. "They're still behind us," she shouted between ragged breaths. "Hold on," I roared, slamming the gas pedal, deciding to go all in. But in that same instant, the road narrowed sharply, the trees on the roadside blurring into streaks in the headlights. "Bruce!" I barely had time to see the massive tree looming ahead. I wrenched the wheel to the side, but it was too late. A deafening crash. Glass shattered into a million pieces. And then chaos. Darkness and pain. Pain was the first thing I felt as I clawed my way back to consciousness. Thick, sticky, spreading through my body like a slow-burning fire, making every breath a battle. I tried to move my arm. A sharp flash of pain exploded in my shoulder. The taste of blood on my lips. Glass had cut into my skin. The car was crushed like a tin can. "Anna." "William." My voice was hoarse, barely audible. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard a faint groan. "Dad." William's muffled voice. "My son. My boy." I summoned every last ounce of strength and forced myself forward. Pain ripped through my body in waves, but I didn't stop. The seatbelt was torn. I crawled out, collapsing onto the cold ground. The sky spun above me. Somewhere in the distance, a car door creaked open. I reached for the back door handle stuck. "Hold on, son," I rasped, shoving my bloodied fingers into the gap and pulling with all my might. The metal groaned. The door gave way, and I saw William pressed against his mother. His face was covered in blood, but he was alive. Anna was breathing too, but her eyes were closed. "It's okay, it's okay," I started to say, then I heard footsteps behind me. The click of a gun's safety being released. I turned my head slowly. The pursuers. 4 men. Armed. They stood in the harsh glare of their headlights, casting long, menacing shadows. And at the front of him, the leader. Tall, gaunt like a starved rat. Filthy blonde hair, receding at the temples, sallow skin, as if he had spent his entire life underground. Sunken cheeks. A thin, predatory nose. A worn leather jacket, probably stripped from someone who no longer needed it. He grinned, and I knew this was far from over. He grinned, revealing his rotten, yellowed teeth. Well, Bruce," he drawled, his voice oozing like melted butter. "Took you long enough." I staggered to my feet, swaying slightly. "Take what you want and leave them alone," I said, my voice hoarse. He laughed, a disgusting, guttural sound. "Oh, giving up so soon?" He tilted his head mockingly. "I thought you put up more of a fight." He gave a slight nod, and one of his men stepped closer, pointing a gun at my face. "The flash drive, Bruce," the bastard hissed. "The electronic key to your accounts. You know what I'm talking about." I didn't answer. His smirk vanished, replaced by a cold sneer. "Don't piss me off," he growled, jerking his chin toward William. "Where your boy gets a bullet in his head. Right here. Right now." William shrank back, clutching his mother's hand, his eyes wide with fear. My fist clenched. "You have no way out," the bastard continued, his voice dripping with satisfaction. It's simply your money or your family. My head was still ringing from the impact, my body barely holding together. But even through the pain, I knew one thing: they would never let us walk away alive. Not after they had what they wanted. I took a slow breath. Fine, I said. It's in the car. His grin widened. See? That wasn't so hard. I turned toward the car. But deep inside me, something dark, something primal, was waiting to be unleashed. I saw it in their eyes. They were going to kill us. And I wasn't about to let that happen. As the bastard stepped forward to check the car, I struck. Like a predator scenting blood. The nearest thug let his guard down for half a second, and that was all I needed. I slammed my elbow into his wrist, sending his gun flying. Before he could react, I snatched the weapon from the ground and spun toward the bastard, aiming at Anna and William. One shot. The bullet punched into Rotten Teeth's chest, sending him staggering backward, clutching at the bloody hole. Fuck! One of them screamed. Gunfire erupted. Run! I bellowed, diving to the side as bullets whizzed past. Anna grabbed William and sprinted for the trees. But just as I took a few steps, a loud blast split the air. It hit me like a truck. A burning, crushing force slammed into my chest, and I collapsed onto my knees. I gasped, my lungs on fire. I looked down. Blood spreading across my shirt. You son of a... I choked out, my head spinning. From the shadows, another figure stepped forward. Tall, built like a tank, holding a rifle. He had a smug, self-satisfied grin, like a man who knew he had won. In one hand, he held Anna like a rag doll. In the other, his fist was tangled in William's hair, the boy struggling weakly. You're a tough one, Bruce, he mused, raising his rifle. But this is where it ends. I couldn't move. My body refused to obey. Pain from the bullet wound spread like molten lead, weighing me down. Then, through my blurred vision, I saw Rotten Teeth stagger back to his feet. Blood leaked from his chest, his breathing ragged, but that disgusting smirk was still on his lips. Damn, you're a persistent fucker, he rasped, spitting blood onto the dirt. I should shoot you myself, but, honestly, I'd rather enjoy watching you squirm. His hungry gaze shifted to Anna. As for your lovely wife, I think we'll have plenty of fun together. He licked his lips. And your kid? Well, let's just say he's going to scream. A lot. And that's the best part. Anna tried to fight back, but the thug holding her slapped her across the face, sending her reeling. Bastard! I gasped, my voice barely above a whisper. Rotten Teeth chuckled and lifted the flash drive in his bloody fingers. Everything you had? It's mine now. Your money. Your family. Your life. He turned to his men. Finish him. But make it slow. He gestured at Anna and William. Get them in the car. And just like that, me world shattered. I lunged forward, but a brutal punch to my stomach knocked the air from my lungs. Someone grabbed my hair and yanked my head up. The first blow. Stars exploded before my eyes as a fist crashed into my cheekbone. The second. My jaw cracked, and the world blurred into searing pain. The third. The fourth. I felt my ribs fracture, the warm trickle of blood running down my face, stinging my eyes. Hold him, someone growled, and another punch buried itself into my gut. I coughed up dark blood, my body convulsing. Rotten Teeth watched me with sick amusement, his lips curling as if he were admiring a piece of art. How does it feel, Bruce? Hurts, doesn't it? He crouched beside me, tilting his head. And it's only going to get worse. I didn't answer. I just stared at him, with hatred, with a silent promise. He smirked and waved a hand. Finish him. 2 gunshots rang out. Agony ignited in my thigh. Then another blast tore into my shoulder. My body refused to move. They grabbed me by the collar and dragged me toward the edge of the ravine. Goodbye, Bruce. Rotten Teeth kicked me in the chest. The world spun as I plunged into the darkness. Waking in the abyss. The darkness faded slowly, like thick fog lifting from my mind. At first, I didn't understand where I was. My body throbbed with relentless pain, every cell screaming. I tried to take a deeper breath and immediately hissed through clenched teeth. It felt like a hot blade had just sliced through my lungs. The sharp scent of antiseptic. The faint hum of machines. A hospital. I survived. How? Fragments of memory flashed before my eyes. Blood. Gunfire. rotten teeth's sneering face. Anna screams as they threw her into the car. William. I jerked, but restraints tightened around my wrists and ankles. They had strapped me down, probably to stop me from hurting myself while unconscious. Fuck, I croaked, my throat dry like sandpaper. I was alive, but where were they? Anna. William. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to force my thoughts into order, but my head throbbed like a war drum. I was useless, lying here, tied to a bed like a broken man, while my family was in the hands of those bastards. What were they? What were they doing to them? Rage started to boil deep inside me. I tried to clench my fist, but my fingers barely responded. Damn it, I was supposed to protect them, and I failed. The longer I lay here, the further away they slipped. I tried to think who called the ambulance. Someone found me. But who? Thoughts swirled, blurred by pain. I had to get out. But how? I closed my eyes again. This time, not to rest but to remember. The path that led here. I was just a kid from the streets. Out there, no one taught you kindness. No one taught you hope. They taught you how to survive. I fought. I stole. I slept in abandoned buildings because going home was more dangerous than the cold. I knew hunger. I knew what it meant to be nothing. But I clawed my way out. The army made me into a man. Discipline, order, control. That became my weapon. Then came private security first, small jobs, nightclub security, cargo escorts, then bigger clients. I learned to read people, their fears, their weaknesses, and then I took a risk. Logistics. I started with one truck. I drove myself. I didn't sleep. I mapped routes. I solved problems. I went through threats, bribes, and bastards who didn't like that I was taking their business. But in the end, I built an empire. I was no longer just some street punk. I was a man people respected. And yet, that night, everything collapsed. We were just driving home after dinner. Anna was laughing at something William said. I was smiling, enjoying the moment. And then headlights in the rearview mirror. I knew immediately it wasn't an accident. And after that, the chase. William's fear. Anna screams. The crash. The gunshots. And now I was here. Alive. Broken but not finished. I gritted my teeth, staring at the ceiling. I would get out. And when I did, they would regret not finishing the job. Death comes knocking. I knew I couldn't stay here for long. Those bastards didn't leave loose ends. They thought I was dead in that ravine. But when they found out the ambulance saved Methy'd come to correct their mistake. I had to get out. But every movement was agony, like my body was a field of open wounds. My face was a bruised mess, my lips split and cracked. My right arm barely moved, and a dull throb pulsed in my side from the bullet wound. But I would survive, because I had to. I didn't know how long I had been unconscious. Days? Hours? Pain blurred time. But there was one thing I knew for certain they would come. And they didn't keep me waiting. I heard him before I saw him. The soft creak of the door. They thought I was weak. They thought I was helpless. They didn't know who I was. I narrowed my eyes, watching the shadow glide across the wall. He moved silently. Smooth. Professional. All black. Gloves. No sound. A hitman. I kept my breathing shallow, my eyes half-lit dead pretending to be asleep. He was tall, muscular, with a cold, dead stare. In his hand, a silenced pistol. He came to finish the job. 2 seconds. That's all it would take for him to put a bullet in my head. But I didn't give him the chance. As he stepped closer, I lunged forward, ripping out the force stand. He didn't expect it. The needle plunged into his neck. He gasped, stumbling back, but I was already wrapping the tube around his throat, pulling it tight like a noose. His eyes widened in shock. He struggled, clawing at my hands, his fists slamming in my wounded shoulder. The world exploded in pain, but I didn't let go. He tried to scream, but I denied him air. His hands scratched and thrashed, his muscles twitching as panic set in. His face turned red. His fingers, once strong and steady, trembled and weakened. I stared into his eyes, watching as fear finally took hold. As he realized he was dying, I yanked the tubing tighter, hearing the sickening crunch of his windpipe collapsing. His body arched, convulsing in agony, and then foam bubbled at his lips. His mouth opened in a silent scream, spit and blood dribbling down his chin. His movements slowed, then stopped. His eyes froze, lifeless. I held the tubing a few seconds longer, just to be sure. Then I let go. His body slumped to the floor like a sack of meat. I stood there, breathing hard, sweat dripping down my face. The first one, but not the last. They thought they had killed me. They were wrong. I would take back my family, and I would end them, one by one. Hunting season begins. Pain gripped me like a vice, tightening with each second. I stumbled out of the hospital, my body barely holding together, every step a new kind of torture. Limping through dark alleyways, I kept my head low, avoiding attention. Home. The house greeted me with cold silence. I didn't turn on the lights. Didn't need to. I made my way to the bedroom, lifted a loose floorboard and pulled out my stash. Cash, documents, and my old military Beretta. Loaded, ready. I ripped off the blood-stained hospital gown, throwing on black jeans, a shirt, and a jacket. Didn't look in the mirror. Didn't need to see what I had become. Lacing up my boots, I bit down a scream as pain tore through my side. I needed pills. The nearest pharmacy was open 24/7. The cashier barely glanced at me as I grabbed the strongest painkillers on the shelf. I swallowed them dry, knowing they'd buy me a few hours of clarity. Now, I needed information, and I knew exactly who to call. The meeting with John. Jesus Christ, Bruce, do you even know what you look like? John's voice was a mix of shock and concern when he saw me. Doesn't matter, I said, cutting him off. I need to find those bastards. He clenched his jaw, studying me carefully. We sat in his car, parked behind an abandoned warehouse. They've been looking for you, he muttered. Everyone thought you were dead. Almost. I leaned back, feeling the painkillers finally kick in. But almost isn't enough. John exhaled sharply, rubbing his forehead. These guys are not just street thugs, Bruce. They have money. Protection. They deal in blackmail, weapons, and murder. Where are they? I asked, my voice sharp. He hesitated, then reached into the glove compartment, pulling out an old city map. There's a place. An old warehouse outside the city. Word is they've been using it as a safe house. I narrow my eyes. You sure? As sure as I can be, he admitted. But listen, Bruce, you go in alone. You're a dead man. I smirked. If they could kill me, they would have already done it. John sighed, shaking his head. You're a goddamn lunatic, you know that? You've known me long enough, John. He stared at me for a long moment. Then, he reached into his pocket and tossed me a set of keys. Take my car. Just don't make me explain to my boss why I helped a half-dead guy wage a one-man war. I caught the keys, gripping them tightly. Appreciate it, John. He gave me a long look. Bruce, don't die, all right? I chuckled darkly. No promises. On the road to war. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, the dried blood on my fingers cracking as I flexed them. John's car cut through the empty roads, carrying me toward the men who took everything from me. I tried to focus on the road, but faces haunted me. Anna, her wide, terrified eyes as they dragged her into the car. William, his desperate screams, calling for me while I lay powerless. I clenched my jaw until it ached. Were they still alive? What had they done to them? I could still see their smug faces, their laughter as they thought they had one. Inside me, something boiled and burned. Not just anger, not just revenge, something colder, sharper, a hunger for absolute destruction. I had one goal, kill them all, and I wouldn't stop until they were erased from this world. How much time had passed since that night? What had they done to them? Every time I thought about it, something inside me tore apart. But in place of pain, something else took root. Hatred, not simple anger, not just revenge. Cold, calculated hatred. It pulsed in my ribs, burned in the back of my skull, flickered in every flash of memory. Rotten teeth, his smug, leering face. The way he grinned when he talked about having fun with Anna. The way he looked at William as if my son was just some helpless toy. Those bastards thought they had won. Thought I'd bled out in the dirt. But I survived. My fingers curled into fists on their own. I could already see how I'd kill them. Not to shoot them. No. Too quick. Too easy. I wanted them to feel pain. I wanted their eyes to widen in horror, to watch as they realized death had come for them in the face of the man they left for dead. The engine roared, speed climbing, but I didn't care. Adrenaline numbed the pain, kept my heart steady, my mind locked onto a single thought. They would die. Every single one. And if any of them had laid a hand on Anna or William, I wouldn't just kill them. I would take everything from them. The tires hissed against the pavement, the outline of abandoned warehouses rising ahead. I took a deep breath, feeling that cold determination settle into my bones. The night had just begun, and someone wasn't walking out of it alive. The first kill. The warehouse stood among rotting, crumbling buildings, surrounded by a rusted fence. An old, peeling sign reading freight logistics creaked in the wind. A perfect place for rats who didn't want to be found. I parked the car 2 blocks away and moved in on foot. The air reeked of oil, rust, and death. In the distance, a generator rumbled, throwing dim, yellow light through a few dirty windows. I pressed myself against the cold metal wall, watching. 5 men. That's how many there were that night. And I just found one of them. A man stepped out of the side door, yawning as he unzipped his fly. The sniper. The same bastard who had fired the shot that put me in the dirt. Funny. His last breath would be taken out here, pants undone, completely unaware. I drew my knife. Smooth wooden grip. Familiar weight. Silent. Fast. Painful. A move like a shadow. Step. Another. He never noticed me until my hand clamped over his mouth. MMPH. His muffled grunt barely made a sound. The blade sank into his side. Hot blood spilled over my hand, soaking my fingers. I squeezed tighter, keeping him from making a sound. The steel tore through muscle, slicing deep. His eyes bulged in shock. I twisted the knife slowly, savoring the way his body convulsed in agony. Deeper, harder. The blade slid through him like butter, carving through flesh. His hands scrabbled weakly at mine, his strength fading with every second. He tried to scream, but my grip was iron. I locked eyes with him. No merci. He had tried to kill me. I'd seen his grin that night as he aimed that rifle. Now, he was staring into my face. The face of the man he failed to bury. When I finally ripped the knife free, his body slumped, and I gently lowered him to the ground. Blood pooled beneath him, soaking into the cracked concrete. He twitched once, then nothing. Silence. I wiped the knife on his shirt. 1 down. 4 to go. And I wasn't stopping now. Inside the den. The blood on my hands was already cooling, but inside I was on fire. I straightened, scanning the area. No one had noticed. No one had come looking for their missing friend. Perfect. I made my way to the building, hugging the walls. Inside, through a dirty window, I saw them. 4 men. The bastards I owed pain. They sat at a battered wooden table, playing cards, laughing like nothing had happened. I could see their faces now. Frankie. Short, fat, constantly sweating, wiping his face with a greasy rag. He was the one who kicked me when I was down, laughing. Dick. Tall, scarred eyebrow. He held Anna back that night, keeping her pinned while Rotten Teeth talked about having fun. Bobby. Shaved head, tattoos covering his thick neck. He stole my wedding ring off my finger while I bled out, smirking. And then, Rotten Teeth. He sat at the head of the table, leaning back in his chair, chewing on a toothpick. Relaxed. Confident. As if he still believed I was rotting in a ditch somewhere. As if he didn't realize death was already in the room with him. My grip tightened on the knife. I could almost taste the blood in the air. Not yet. I needed them off guard. I needed to make them afraid. So I waited. And when the time was right, I would give them the death they deserved. I stood in the shadows, gripping my knife, watching them. 4 bastards. Sitting inside, laughing, playing cards like they hadn't dragged my family into hell. Rotten rats. Frankie short, fat, his bloated cheeks always slick with sweat, wiping his face with a filthy rag. He was the one who stomped on my ribs that night, laughing as I bled. Dick Lanky, scarred brow, the one who held Anna back while Rotten Teeth described how they'd have fun with her. Bobby bald, tattooed, the bastard who had rifled through my pockets while I lay dying, laughing when he found my wedding ring. And then Rotten Teeth, sprawled at the head of the table, picking at his gums, smirking like he still ran the show. Calm, smug, completely unaware that death was already staring him in the face. I tightened my grip on the knife, my knuckles going white. The pain in my body didn't matter anymore. They were too comfortable, too sure of themselves, too blind to the fact that their next breath could be their last. I wanted to tear them apart. Slowly. I wanted them to feel what I felt that night when they kicked me, when they took Anna, when they stuffed William into that car. I wanted fear to slither into their veins, to choke them, to let them know that no one was coming to save them. I took a steady breath. Heart calm. Pulse controlled. I closed my eyes for a single second, pushing aside the rage, leaving only cold precision. They didn't know I was here. I had weapons. I had time, and I was going to kill them, one by one. No more waiting. I drew my gun, inhaling deeply. They were relaxed. They were drinking cheap whiskey, laughing, completely unaware that death was already at the door. It was time to wake them up. I stepped forward and kicked the door in. Bang! The crash made them jump, their drinks and cards spilling across the table. Rotten Teeth lunged for his chair, but my gun was already up. Miss me, motherfuckers? And before any of them could move, I pulled the trigger. First shot, Bobby. The bullet slammed into his gut, his eyes bulging in shock. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He clutched his stomach, blood pouring through his fingers. I stepped closer and fired again, straight into his knee. Ahak! He howled, collapsing to the floor. I let him writhe, let him feel it. Second shot, Frankie. I turned. Frankie was reaching for his gun. Too slow. I aimed and put a bullet straight through his mouth. Teeth, flesh, bone, all shattered. Blood bubbled from his lips as he gargled his last breath, collapsing in a heap. Third dick. He grabbed a gun, but I was already on him. The bullet grazed his shoulder, not enough to kill. Good. I want to take my time. I ripped the gun from his hands and slammed my forehead into his nose. Crack. A satisfying crunch. He screamed, but I shoved my knife under his ribs, feeling it slice through muscle. That's for my son, you piece of shit, I whispered, twisting the blade. His body twitched, blood spitting from his lips, but I drove the knife deeper, savoring the way he shook in agony. I didn't stop until he went limp. Only one left. I turned, but Rotten Teeth was already at the door, limping, gripping his bleeding side. Not dead but wounded. Not yet, you bastard. No. I roared, bolting after him. He staggered through the doorway, and I followed, but a wave of pain shot through my ribs. I'm fired, missed. Only knocked the gun from his hand. Run, motherfucker. I growled. See how far you get. The chase ends here. Rotten Teeth ran like a rat, weaving between buildings, his feet stumbling, his breath ragged. I caught him in minutes. He wasn't a fighter. He was a scavenger, a snake who preyed on the weak. I swept his legs out, sending him crashing to the dirt. He howled, clutching his side, shaking like a coward. Bruce, we can talk. We can make a deal. He choked out, blood dripping from his lips. I smirked, pulling a hammer from my belt. You wanted to have fun with my wife? I murmured. Wanted to hurt my son? His eyes widened in pure terror. Bruce, please. I swung the hammer. Crack. His right kneecap shattered. His scream echoed through the night. I grinned. That one was for me. Crack. His left kneecap exploded, the bone turning to pulp. That one was for my wife. He convulsed, sobbing, trying to crawl away. Please, Bruce. I'll tell you anything. I grabbed him by the hair, yanking his bloodied face up. Where's my family? He choked on his own spit. Gigi mi Ketterson. He has them. He took your wife, your kite, has the money, please. I swear. Jimmy Catterson. I grinned. Thank for the info. He sagged, relieved, thinking it was over. What a fool. Bruce, please let me go. I studied him for a moment. Then I chuckled. You really do have rotten teeth. His eyes widened in horror. I swung the hammer. Smash. His front teeth shattered, flying in all directions. Aya. Smash. His mouth was a ruin, nothing but blood, splinters of bone, and choking gurgles. He couldn't even beg anymore. Just whimper and shake. I grab him by the throat, my fingers digging in. Remember when you said my son would scream? His bulging eyes try to plead. I squeeze harder. Now you're the one screaming. Then I swung the hammer into his skull. His body convulsed. And then stillness. I exhaled, wiping the blood from my hands. Now, I had a name. Jimmy Catterson. The bastard who took my family. And he was next. I reached out to John again. Shoving the bloodstained hammer into my backpack, I wiped my hands on my shirt and dialed his number. The dial tone dragged on. Bruce? John's voice was tense. Jesus, you're alive? Wouldn't be calling if I wasn't, I replied. What the hell are you doing? He hissed. I just got a report about a shootout at an abandoned warehouse for dead. Let me guess that was you? Most of them, I smirked. One took a little longer to die. Fuck. John exhaled. Bruce, you're leaving me no choice. If this gets out, I'll be fired and you'll be wiped off the map. Then help me finish this and no one will have to investigate anything. Silence. I could hear his heavy breathing. What do you need? He finally asked. I know who's behind this. Jimmy Catterson. Shit, John cursed. That's serious. Where's he keeping my family? John's keyboard clattered in the background. He's got multiple locations, but if he really took your wife and kid, they're probably at his mansion. That's his fortress where he keeps everything valuable. Where? Outskirts. The Western Hills. Old estate. Heavy security, cameras, gates, armed guards. You won't get in there alone. I've already walked into hell alone, John. Bruce, for fuck's sake, thanks for the intel. I cut him off and hung up. I had an address. But before I went there, I needed to pick up a few things. Arming up. There was a stash on the south side of the city. Back when I ran transport operations, not everything was strictly legal. Some shipments needed protection, and protection required firepower. I opened the garage. Underneath a pile of junk lay a metal crate. I yanked off the old tarp, turned the key in the lock. The lid creaked open. Weapons. An M4A1 with a suppressor old, but reliable. 2 Glock 17s, fully loaded. A hunting knife, razor sharp. Grenades. 2 of them, just in case. I loaded the rifle, tucked the pistols into my waistband, strapped the knife to my thigh. Slid on tactical gloves, a bulletproof vest, and a dark jacket. Now I was ready. Catterson's estate loomed on the hill, shrouded in darkness. A vast courtyard, security cameras, floodlights. Armed men patrolling the perimeter. Didn't matter. I watched from the shadows, studying the guards' movements. 10 men along the fence line. 4 more at the front entrance, chatting idly. The spotlights swept the area, but I knew how to move unseen. I attached the suppressor to my M4A1 and moved in. One guard stepped away from his patrol, lighting a cigarette. I crept up behind him, slipping through the darkness. Before he realized what was happening, I grabbed his neck and drove my knife into his kidney, twisting it slowly. He convulsed, choking on his own breath. I clamped a hand over his mouth, muffling any sound. Then I yanked the blade free and drove it into his throat. His body shuddered one last time, then went still. I lowered him to the ground and kept moving. 2 guards patrolled along the fence. I raised the M4A1, aimed 2 silent shots. Both dropped instantly, their skulls snapping back. No scream, no alarm, just silence. I rushed over, grabbed an extra magazine from one body, a spare knife from the other. Always good to have options. Stealth wasn't an option anymore. I pulled a grenade, yanked the pin, and tossed it into the courtyard. Boom! The explosion ripped through the compound, tearing one guard apart, hurling 2 more back in a cloud of shrapnel and fire. Panic erupted. I raised my rifle and opened fire. First target chest full of bullets, collapsing with a strangled cry. Second try to hide behind crates, but I shot him in the leg. He screamed, clutching his shattered thigh. I walked up to him as he crawled away. Please, he wheezed. I caved his skull in with my rifle stock. Crack. Skull fragments splattered across the pavement. 3 more guards stormed out of the house, guns raised. I rolled behind a stone statue, pulled the second grenade, and threw it. They didn't even have time to react. Boom! Their bodies shredded apart, the snow around them turning scarlet. Then silence. Only smoke, gunpowder, and death lingered in the air. I reloaded my Glock and turned toward the mansion doors. Now Jimmy Catterson. Now me family. I stepped into the mansion, gun ready, feeling my heart pound against my ribs. Blood still dripped from my fingers. Gunpowder clung to my clothes, but I didn't care how many men I had killed. I came for Anna and William. In the grand hall, bathed in warm golden light, stood Jimmy Catterson. Tall, expensive suit, confident smirk. in one hand a desert eagle, pressed against Anna's temple. She stood in front of him, her hair disheveled, face pale with fear but her eyes full of despair. "Congratulations, Bruce," Catterson drawled, smirking. "You turned this place into a goddamn war zone. I'll give you credit. I'm impressed." "Let her go," I said, my voice rough but steady. Catterson chuckled. "And then what? You shoot me?" I took a step forward, then I saw it. A half-open door to the side. My gaze drifted toward it, and the world stopped. William, lying on a hospital bed, unconscious, for drip hooked into his arm, his small body pale and motionless. What? The words caught in my throat. Catterson smirked. "Oh, that's right. You still don't know what happened to your boy." "Bruce." Anna's voice trembled. "Put the gun down." I couldn't look away from my son. His fragile body lay still, but his face still held that same defiant determination. Like he had fought till the very end. "You want to know what really happened that night?" Catterson's voice slithered through the air. I raised my gun, aiming straight at his forehead, but he pressed the barrel harder against Anna's head. One move in, her brains decorate the walls. I froze. Anna let out a choked sob. "Bruce, please, he'll kill me." My heart clenched. Slowly, I began to lower my gun, and then a gunshot shattered the silence. Agony ripped through my shoulder, and I collapsed to one knee. I couldn't breathe. I looked up at Anna. The pistol in her hands was still pointed at me. She had pulled it from behind her back. "Fuck!" She shot me. The room tilted, my breath caught in my throat. Catterson burst into laughter. "Oh fuck, this is even better than I imagined." Anna smirked, the mask of fear slipping away. "You have no idea how long I've waited for this, Bruce." I tried to push myself up, but my arm wouldn't respond. Blood dripped onto the marble floor. "Why you?" The words barely came out. She crouched down, her face now completely devoid of fear or remorse. "From the very beginning, darling." Catterson clapped his hands together. "Go on, babe. Tell him. He's earned it." Anna dragged a finger along my jawline. "Did you really think I was going to waste my life sitting next to you?" Her voice was mocking, almost pitying. "You were always pathetic, crude, predictable. You had money, but you were nothing." Anger clawed through the pain. "You work for them?" She laughed softly. "I love Jimmy." Catterson gave a mocking bow. "We just decided it was time to get rid of you." Then William. His screams that night. The way he fought in the car, realizing something was wrong. My son knew. I turned to look at him, and something inside me broke. Catterson leaned in close, grinning. "Your kid was tough. He figured it out before you did." I couldn't breathe. When we were driving, he put together, Catterson chuckled. "He realized your loving wife set you up." My world crumbled. "He panicked, tried to help you," Catterson continued. "But my guys didn't feel like dealing with a little hero." I squeezed my eyes shut. "So he jumped out of the car," Catterson mused, smirking. "Tried to run." Rage burned through my lungs. "He wasn't lucky." Anna leaned in closer. "And now, Bruce, you finally understand." I slowly lifted my gaze. "Anna," she smiled. "What is it, darling?" I clenched my jaw. Blood dripped from my lips as I whispered, "I'm going to kill you." Anna leaned in closer, her lips curling into a cruel smirk. She was enjoying this. Catterson stood beside her, grinning, gun still raised. They thought I was broken, that it was over. But I had one last card to play. My fingers inched toward the knife hidden in my waist, brushing against the cold steel. And it was too close. Perfect. I lunged forward, grabbing her wrist, twisting hard. Her gun clattered to the floor as she screamed in pain. Without missing a beat, I whipped around and threw the knife at Catterson. The blade sank into his arm, and he howled, dropping his weapon. I didn't give him time to react. A brutal punch to the gut sent him crashing backward, knocking over a bottle of expensive whiskey as he slammed into the table. Anna tried to run, but I kicked her aside, sending her skidding across the floor. "Sit the fuck down, bitch. I'll deal with you later." I turned back to Catterson. He was crawling, gasping, reaching desperately for his gun. I stomped on his hand. Crunch. His scream echoed through the room. I smashed the rifle, but into his face. A sickening crack. Blood splattered onto the marble floor. "What's wrong, Jimmy? Not so fun anymore?" He spat blood, smirking through broken teeth. You are dead anyway. I grabbed him by the collar and drove my fist into his jaw. No, Jimmy. You are. I pulled out my phone. Right now, you're going to transfer not only my money back, but every last cent you own. He chuckled, despite the pain. Go to hell, Bruce. I shot him in the knee. He screamed, writhing on the floor. Last chance, asshole. His hands shook as he pulled out his phone, trembling fingers tapping in the details. A minute later, ding. Transaction confirmed. I smiled. Thanks for your generosity. Catterson gasped, his body convulsing, but still managed a bloody grin. They'll come for you. Bruce, you're a dead man. I didn't care. I grabbed him by the hair and plunged my knife into his throat. A vicious twist. Blood gushed in a violent spray, soaking his tailored suit. His eyes widened, mouth opening, but no sound came out. He gurgled, drowning in his own blood. I watched as the life drained from him. His body shuddered, then went still. I let go, his corpse slumping like a discarded rag doll. One of the most powerful men in the city no longer existed. But I wasn't done yet. I slowly turned to Anna. She was crawling away, her face twisted in pure terror. Bruce, baby, please. I smirked. No, darling. Please is what you'll be saying when I send you to your lover. She scrambled back, her breathing ragged, eyes darting frantically around the room. But there was no escape. I loomed over her, knife still dripping with blood, looking down at the woman I once loved. The woman who betrayed me. The woman responsible for my son lying unconscious in the next room. Do you even understand what you've done? My voice was cold as death. She shook her head violently, her hands trembling. Bruce, please, it's not what you think. I snatched her by the hair, yanking her head back, forcing her to look me in the eyes. You tried to kill me. No, it was Jimmy. He made me do it. I laughed, but there was no joy in the sound. Made you? I leaned in. You loved him, didn't you? You chose him over me. You chose the money, the power. Her lips quivered. I just wanted something better. I snarled. Something better? You risked your own son's life, you fucking bitch. She flinched, tears streaming down her face. You knew they could kill him. You saw him fighting to escape, and you still laughed with that bastard. She grabbed at my shoulder, desperation in her grip. No, Bruce, please. I didn't want this. I shoved her away, sending her sprawling onto the floor. I don't care anymore, Anna. She looked up at me, eyes wide with panic. You're going to kill me? I inhaled deeply, then slowly wiped my knife clean. No, I'm not going to touch you. Her face contorted in confusion. But I crouched down, leaning close to her ear. I just won't protect you. Her eyes went wide with horror. W, what do you mean? I stood up. All of Catterson's money is mine now. And you? You're the only one left from his crew. You think they'll let you live? Her face drained of color. Did they'll think that you betrayed them? I shrugged. Of course. The money's gone. You're the last one standing. What do you think happens next? Her breath hitched, hands shaking violently. Bruce, please. I turned toward the door. Goodbye, Anna. She sprang to her feet, clutching my arm. No, please. Don't leave me. They'll kill me. I ripped my arm away. Then you'll finally know what it's like to be the prey. William still lay beneath the floor, his face pale, but his chest rose and fell. He was alive. I slowly approached, carefully disconnecting the machines, then lifted him into my arms. He felt so light. Too light. I exhaled sharply, holding him close. I've got you, son. With that, I turned toward the door. But Anna was gone. A creaking noise. I looked back, the window was open. And then I saw her. She stood on the ledge, her eyes wide with panic. Her breath ragged, realization setting in. There was no way out. I said nothing. Just watched. She shook, staring at me. Then she stepped forward. Glass shattered. I walked to the window and looked down. Her body lay crushed on the roof of a car. Neck twisted at an unnatural angle. Arms shattered. Lifeless like a broken doll. I let out a slow breath. Goodbye, Anna. Then I turned and walked into the night, my son in my arms. Months had passed. I sat back, watching as William ran along the beach, laughing just like he used to, like he did before the world collapsed. The waves rolled in soft and lazy, The sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the water in golden hues. We left. I sold everything I could, erased every trace of the life we had before, and chose a place where no one would ever find us. A place where we could simply live. Not survive. Not fight. Just live. I put my son on a plane, got him as far away as possible from that city drenched in blood and betrayal. His recovery was long. Hospitals, doctors, rehabilitation. Sleepless nights. The fear that he might never wake up. But he did wake up. He survived. And now, standing before me, was a healthy, smiling boy, embracing life as if it had only just begun. I took a slow sip of my coffee, sinking into the lounge chair, letting my eyes drift shut. The pain was behind me. The gunfire, the blood, the hatred, the rage, none of it mattered anymore. For the first time in years, I felt peace. William ran up to me, his face covered in sand, beaming. "Dad, can I go a little longer?" I smirked. "Of course, son." He grinned and took off back toward the water. And I sat there, watching him, knowing that for the first time in my life I had made the right choice. The world wasn't perfect, but now we had the present. We had the future, and that was enough.